Maz Jobrani, welcome back to Mea Culpa. It's been a while. I haven't seen you, my friend. So much to talk about. So much has taken place since I last had you here on Mea Culpa. Hour goes by quick, so I'm going to just jump right into it. And I want to start with the big lie of the month, right? Trump claiming that he secured $12 trillion in investments during his little magic carpet ride through the Middle East. Now, I mean, are we supposed to believe this guy that has bankrupted about a dozen companies, that he just landed the single biggest deal in human history?
No, I mean, if there's one lesson we've learned is that we're not supposed to trust him. And by the way, you said at the top that it's been a while since I've seen you. It has been a while. I was saying it would be interesting if last time I seen you, which was probably like a couple years back, I'd gone into hibernation and then just woke up right now and been like, what happened? Because It's just where we were then and where we are now is unbelievable. We were at a place where he was starting to be held accountable for what he'd done. We were at a place where people were starting to open up their eyes and see that he's in it for himself, that he's a narcissist, he's selfish, all that stuff. And now here we are, several years later, he's tanked the world economy and he's trying to clean up by saying, oh, look, these guys are given whatever, $12 trillion. And we all know, I mean, every time he, first of all, makes a promise, it's totally the opposite. Secondly, his numbers are constantly fluctuating. And you can look at his numbers related to anything. If you remember with those illegal immigrants, they were originally like 10 million, then 12 million, then 20 million. It's just all over the place. And in a case like this, I don't even know if he knows what, like maybe somebody over there said like, sir, we'll give you 12 trillion reals or some like other currency. And he's like, oh, it's going to be great.
Oh, by the way, I never thought of it that way. Right. So what would the translation of that be? So the Qatari money is called.
I think it's I'm pretty sure it's a Qatari real. I think we could look
real,
it up.
right? Yeah, something like that. And yeah, I wonder what the conversion rate is. You know what? Actually, as I'm sitting here with you right this second, I'm going to look it up because it's an extremely interesting. That could actually 12, let's say, trillion US dollar to the
12. You got to do 12 trillion Qatari real to the US dollar. So if if someone in Qatar or UAE told them they're going to give them their reals in trillions, and I think it's like 4-1 or something, it's still a lot of money. It still would be like 3 trillion or 2 trillion or something.
Dollar. Well, it's $3.293 trillion. It's about 3.3 trillion dollars.
Yeah.
Now that makes a whole lot more. That makes a whole lot more sense to me. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. It's almost like a 1-to-4. Interesting. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Unbelievable. I never thought of it. But you're not wrong about that. I wrote in my first book, Disloyal, and I followed that up with another statement in my second book, Revenge, where I talked about how Trump, when we were redoing his statement of financial condition, and that was the topic that Tish James, brought the action against Trump and the Trump org on. He literally would say, I'm worth like $6 billion. In fact, I'm probably worth 7. It could even be 9 or 10. Like, you know what? I'm actually worth 10. But he literally would become $4 billion richer in a period of a second. We watched as he went from place to place to place, increased the numbers literally during different speeches that he would make, whether it was to the Emir, to Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi, or to the president of the UAE. I mean, there's no standard number, which is kind of odd, right?
Yeah, I mean, we know who he is. He's not a factual person, and he just makes things up as he goes. It's kind of like some kid on the playground being like, yeah, my dad is a millionaire, and then he's a billionaire, there's a trillionaire, and he just keeps going. And so that's what he is. And I don't blame the Qataris or the Saudis or anybody else for trying to play ball with this guy, because this guy he's wide open. He's like, oh yeah, sure, pay me and make me, give me what you want, and I'll give you what you want.
Right?
So
you mean he's for sale?
He's for sale. He's for sale. And so if I had a lot of money too, I would, first of all, I'd promise him a lot of money. And secondly, I'd probably give him a lot less. Just to, again, to your point, just because who knows where he got that number from, the 12 trillion. I have no idea where he got that from. And I definitely if Chairman Powell said, oh, we have 12 trillion influx of money coming in, I'd be like, okay, that's someone who's a factual person, an economist who's telling us numbers. This guy's a mumbo jumbo guy. I mean, Michael, matter of fact, what I'd like you to do is maybe a week or so after, or like in 2 weeks or so, just see if you can find other clips and see how that number is moving around. Like there should be almost like a money line, like a Vegas money line on like where's.
It's funny, Maz, that we turn it. You're right. There should be a Vegas line. I had this Substack that I had written, in the past. It's called A Birthday Bribe for the Don. And in it, I turn around and I'm like, the United States is so rich. We're so rich, especially even in comparison to the GDP of Qatar. And I kind of talk about this with the aircraft thing that's going on, this $400 million flying palace bribe that they want to give to him. In it, I turn around and I have a new pitch. All right, I really do. So let's just turn around and say what everyone else is too polite, too neutered, or too compromised to say. I say we beat the Qataris at their own game. Let's bribe the president of the United States, our president, tragically and farcically, to work for us, right? And I say, you heard me right. It's time for the United States to roll up its sleeves, take a shot of scotch, and embrace the ugly truth that Trump is for sale. Always has been. The man treats loyalty like a door prize and policy like a limited time offer at Bed Bath & Beyond. But if the alternative is selling America to the highest bidder, then maybe, just maybe, we need to pony up before he puts the Constitution on eBay. Think about it, right? It's going to cost the American people $1 billion if Trump takes this $400 million aircraft from the Qataris, because it needs to be stripped to the bare bones and then reassembled. So if we give him a $500 million aircraft, think about this. If we gave him a $500 million, let's up the ante on the Qataris, right? We're going to make this not a floating palace, just a floating Palace of Versailles, for him with all the bells. I'll put a fucking waterfall in that aircraft if that'll make him happy. Just let's bribe him to work, to grift, to lie, to steal for us instead of for a foreign nation. And with that in mind, right, he calls all of this a presidential necessity. He needs that aircraft. Maz, how do you see this playing out when it looks like such a blatant bribe that's dressed up in luxury leather seats?
Well, first of all, what a brilliant idea in terms of, let's just bribe him because we know he's for sale. So why not? Why not pay him if he's going to do stuff for us? You're right. The Democrats, when they, instead of raising money to have their candidate run, should just start paying him money and saying, okay, let's change your immigration policy, or let's change your whatever policy we want him to change. And it's likely that he would start doing it. Like that's a great point.
Isn't it?
Also, the other thing to keep in mind is he keeps talking about how rich he is. And that I always found that pretty rich, pun intended, that he was saying, I'm rich, I'm a multi-billionaire. But when, for example, he got in trouble for January 6th, he started a legal fund and said, send me money. Hey, poor guy who's got no money, send me your money so that I can fight all these legal cases. You're supposed to be worth billions and billions. Why don't you have the nobility to go, guys, this is on me. I got this. I believe, and this probably, he's a very cheap guy. And so
well, I think you just answered your own thought. He would rather somebody else pay for him. He thinks he was doing the government and the country a favor. Why should he pay for that? When everybody else in his mind has gotten some benefit.
And that's, that's where the Qataris and those Arab countries have realized, oh, this guy is flattered when you do these kinds of things. Because, in the past, you would show up and they would present a sword or something, right? Here's a sword. It's an honor to have, and you would, bring it back or whatever. But to give him the plane, they clearly go, this guy will take it. He's got no scruples, and he's too cheap to get it himself. He just keeps complaining about it. It's kind of like, the funny thing is, he's been complaining about Air Force One for a while. So it's kind of like, a couple in a relationship, and one of the couples keeps saying, like, I have my shoes are old. I got these old shoes. And then you go and get them nice shoes. You're like, oh, you kept complaining about your shoes, so I got you the nice shoes. So in this case, he's been complaining about Air Force One for a long time, calling it a dump. And by the way, Michael, I just thought of this. Let's not forget, he keeps saying the White House is a dump. Yep. What country's going to buy him a new White House? That's the question, Michael. Where are we going next?
Yeah, to Mar-a-Lago. Look, we have the emoluments clause for a reason, right? So that a president cannot turn the Oval Office into a swap meet, because that's what he's doing. He's literally turning it with these bunch of idiots, these enablers around him. They're turning the Oval Office into a swap meet. But Trump treats it like a punchline. Why does his base eat it up while the rest of us are screaming bloody corruption?
I mean, that's the $1 million question, Michael. I mean, we've been years and years now going.
No.
Sorry, $1 trillion question.
It's a $1 trillion question.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's one of those things. The analogy I used to use was like, in high school or in our lives, you would see somebody who's in a volatile a bad relationship, and you say to that person, hey, the person you're with is not good for you. They're abusive, they're this, they're that. And they would say, no, but he loves me, and all that. And you go, but don't you see what's happening? And that, to me, I feel like are his constituents. Like they somehow do not see what anybody with two eyes could clearly see, that this guy's in it for himself, that he's trying to. Oh, by the way, a lot of this stuff that he's doing, these numbers that he throws out, $12 trillion, the doging of all these agencies, the tariffs that are supposed to pay for taxes, all of this is just a pretense to pass this tax cut that they want to continue. All of that is that, so that once they pass that tax cut for the billionaires, they go, look at how much money we save, look at how much money I'm bringing in. And so I deserve this tax, and this, let's do the tax cut. So it's just, to your point, like, it almost feels like his constituent doesn't take step 2 of the thought process and go, why is he doing this? Why is he taking an airplane? Like, to your point, we've been, a democracy for over 250 years. Why has no president ever taken a gift of this kind in the past? Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. And why is this guy doing it? Because he is, once again, narcissist, in it for himself. And, afterwards, he's saying, I'm going to take the plane, I'm going to put it in my library. I mean, well, how is that for us? He's selling it as like, this is a gift to America. I'm taking it in my library. I mean, come on.
The funniest part is when you sit there and you try to explain to one of his followers, these MAGA morons. You do realize that you're not a billionaire. You do realize that you probably have less than $5,000 in your bank, in your checking account or your bank account. You are pushing for billionaires who are worth $100 billion, $200 billion, $300+ billion, that they should pay less in taxes than you do. And yet you cheer this. And how do you cheer it? By buying yet another hat, this one that says Trump 2028 in it, which they are, meaning the Trump group, are now hailing as the greatest merchandising gift of all time. That they have sold more Trump 2028 hats, it's another lie, Trump 2028 hats, than they sold with all the MAGA hats combined. Now, obviously, that's not true, because MAGA hats have a 7-year lead over them, right? Or an 8-year lead over them. So that's clearly not true. But you understand the point that he's trying to make here.
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. I think that a lot of times I try to give the Trump voter the benefit of the doubt. I go, okay, maybe they fell for the lie that he's going to bring prices down. He's going to make their lives better. He's going to find jobs for them. Sometimes I try to go, maybe they really are economic. They're fiscally conservative, and they're saying, let's do that. But then when you look at when, for example, he put these nonsensical tariffs in, and everyone started losing their money, their 401ks, and some people continue to defend him there. I said, well, maybe they are just racist. Maybe they are just, hypocrites and bigots who don't like members of the LGBTQ community. They don't like minorities. They don't like immigrants. Maybe they really are all of that. And they've been hiding under the pretense of, no, I'm doing this for fiscal reasons. But in reality, they're going, no, I'm doing this because this guy's saying he's going to go and ban transgender service members in the military. I mean, that really, I think, starts coming down to what it is that a lot of his supporters are that. And so I try to give them the benefit of the doubt, but they don't seem to, show any kind of logical explanation as to why they continue to support him. If they turn around and said, look, I voted for him because we have this now a lot too. I voted for him and oh my God, I didn't know he's going to ruin my pocketbook that much. And I didn't know he's going to be so corrupt. And I didn't know he's going to send out basically a Gestapo to take brown people off the streets and send them to El Salvador. I didn't know he was going to do all this. I've changed my mind. I go, okay, this is a person who fell for the lie and now has woken up. But a lot of people still defend him. And that's what's crazy. I don't get those people. And I also got to say that they're racist.
You're calling them like, fiscally conservative and socially moderate. And so therefore, they're not. They're fiscally deprived and they're intellectually stymied. That's really what they are. It's one thing when somebody lies to you and you buy into the bullshit, no problem. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. He hasn't fooled them twice. He's fooled them 200 times. And it's almost like, hey, thank you, sir. Can I have another, right, from Animal House, when he was being paddled. This is the dumbest thing in the world. Your egg prices are not down. Trump, over the course, again, of this magic carpet ride that he just took through the Middle East, think about this. He talked to the president of the UAE. He talked to the emir of Qatar. He talked to the crown prince of Saudi about groceries and egg prices. Somebody needs to explain to this intellect of our chief executive, that you are in a Muslim country, right? In fact, all 3 locations that you went to are Muslim countries. They don't give a shit about the Easter egg hunt. That I can promise you. I mean, I assure you, they don't care about the price of eggs, by the way, Mr. President, any more than you do, considering you're not paying for your food, right?
Yeah.
It's paid for by the U.S. government. You really think that Mohammed bin Salman gives a shit about the price of eggs? Do you think that the Emir of Qatar cares about the price of eggs? Of course they don't. And to sit there and to talk about it, it doesn't just make the president of the United States look stupid. It makes all of us look stupid because this is the man who's speaking for us.
Yeah, he's definitely not the most educated person. I'd be curious to know if he knew where he was when in the different countries. I've performed in those countries, and I've also performed in Scandinavia. There's certain parts of the world where you go, and there's a lot of countries that are close to each other, and the people dress kind of similarly, and they look very similar. And I wonder if there was times when he was in Qatar and he thought he was in Saudi, and he was in UAE and he thought he was in. He's not the most intellectual person on the planet, and so when he's up there talking about stuff that is not relatable to those countries, about egg prices or whatever he rambles on about, he's not someone who's thought about this. He doesn't have any kind of insight into their cultures, and so he's just we've got a really unintellectual person representing us on the world stage. And it's kind of embarrassing to all of us. I wonder if as they, leave, some of these guys turn around and go, did you see what that, did you see how how excited he got about the camels or whatever, like little things like that, And the thing, going back real quickly to his constituents, and they continue to, fall for it. There were so many moments that should have been eye-opening moments. One of the biggest ones being January 6th that we've talked about over and over and over again. And then the fact that he comes in and pardons those guys. If you are a law and order constituent supporter of his, you should say, you shouldn't, even the Stuart Rhodes and the Tario, whatever his name is, Enrique Tarios, and, they just keep falling for it. And now with this new thing with the South African refugees coming in, I wonder how that came about. Well, because of conspiracy theories online, and I'm sure Elon egged it on a little bit, but it started supposedly in like 2019. There was John Bolton saying they were in a conversation, and he saw it online somewhere and said, we should save these white South Africans. And so again, if I'm his constituent, I keep falling for it, and I go, he doesn't care about me. He's got his own agenda. He's got his own thing going on. And I don't know. I feel like we scream at them and they just don't wake up.
It's funny. You took Enrique Tario, who is an insurrectionist, and you made him into Danny Tario, who is from Dan's Fever, right? Just to give you a little reference there. But probably you're so right. They refuse to listen, and the more that you try to impress upon them with legitimate information, just going back to this whole egg things. First, it was 85% that the price has come down. This episode of Mea Culpa is brought to you by Graza, my new favorite olive oil. It's fresh, it's never blended, and it comes from a single type of olive, the Picual, straight out of Jaén, Spain, where over half of the world's olive oil is produced. So why Graza? Single origin goodness, that's why. Only one olive from one region. No mysterious blends. That means a traceable, a fresher product without mixing in any low grade or unknown oils. It's super fun. It has squeeze and spray bottles too, so there's no more messy tins or drippy spouts. Just aim, squeeze, and go. There are 3 types for any task that you have. One, they have something called frizzle. That's their newest, with a higher 490-degree Fahrenheit smoke point, which is perfect for frying, crisping, or grilling. Sizzle at 410 degrees Fahrenheit, which is an everyday cooking oil for roasting, marinating, and sauteing. Then they have something called drizzle, which is a bold, a punchy finishing oil that you sprinkle on your salads, you dip your bread in, or even you top it off on your ice cream. Look, let me be clear. My daughter is the actual chef in the house, and she uses olive oil on everything from pastas to preparing steak. Not only does this cook well, it smells delicious. Plus, as a healthy eater, Graza's extra virgin oils, they are loaded with those heart and brain friendly polyphenols. So it's good for you. Look, so here's what you get. You get 10% off your first order on Graza's site. But I personally suggest grabbing the trio. That's all the 3 squeezy bottles, the sizzle, the frizzle, and the drizzle, so that you're set for every style of cooking. So head right now to graza.co and use code Cohen to get 10% off of Trio, which includes, again, sizzle, frizzle, and drizzle, and get to cooking your next chef-quality meal. Again, head to Graza, Graza.co, and use code Cohen, Cohen, to get 10% off the Trio. And I love saying it, sizzle, frizzle, and drizzle. So get cooking now. Now, I'm not a mathematician. I'm good with math. I'm not a mathematician. But if, in fact, his number is right, that he brought the egg prices down 85% already, and this is bullshit that he was spewing when he was here in America, that would mean that a price per dozen eggs, for a carton of eggs, would be $50, give or take, right? If he reduced it by 85%. That's not even the number that he used, because that number in his mind isn't impressive enough in order to impress upon, imagine this, impress upon the Emir of Qatar, to impress upon the Crown Prince of Saudi, to impress upon the president of the UAE. 85%. It's, I'm going big. I've already brought down the prices 200%. 200%. You're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of about $140 to $150 for a dozen eggs. Now, look, I don't give a shit whether you're from Arkansas, Manhattan, Chicago, California, Florida. Nobody has ever seen $10 an egg. All right, I don't care what you say. Nevertheless, his supporters, they're like, yeah, but that's not really what he meant. Really?
Yeah.
What did he mean? I'm not the one who's saying it. I'm just repeating it. This is what he said.
Numbers aren't important to these people. If you recall, his press secretary, maybe it was Pam Bondi, actually, who in that cabinet meeting they had where they were going around just kissing his ass. She mentioned the amount of fentanyl that's come in and how it's gone down, and she said because of that he has saved 250 million lives. That would mean, Michael, that 2/3 of America had a fentanyl problem, and he saved them. So numbers are not.
Do you have a fentanyl problem?
Yeah, we all have a. Two out of three. 2 out of 3 has fentanyl problem. I mean, the numbers are not important to them. They just throw those numbers out. And speaking of numbers, what I was again surprised at is when you talk to his constituents, they don't do the second logical step of, for example, the tariffs. Who benefited from the tariffs? Anybody with a ton of money benefited from the tariffs because the stock market tanked. They went on a shopping spree and bought Apple stock at, whatever it was, 20% less. They bought a bunch of other stocks for discounted prices, and they went up. And it's not just my theory. He had Charles Schwab in the Oval Office going, he made $1 billion. He made $1 billion. So
you can't make this stuff up.
You can't.
No.
It's crazy.
Can I jump onto, because you talked about the deportation. Trump's deportation order literally just dropped like a hammer. I mean, he's calling it round 2 of the Great Purge. What's your take on how this fits into the broader authoritarian playbook that he's using this time around?
Well, Michael, it's interesting. When they arrested the Tufts University graduate student who'd written an op-ed piece, and we all saw that video where these ICE agents just come up to her in the middle of the streets in Massachusetts, and they're covered, and they arrest her and they take her. I posted that on my stories to go, what is going on? And I have a lot of people who follow me from Iran on my Instagram. And some of them were commenting. They were like, this is the kind of stuff that happens in Iran. This is the kind of stuff that happens in, let's say, Russia, North Korea, authoritarian states. And it's happening here. And the fact that people haven't woken up to it, these people have been armed with the ability to step up to us without a warrant, without a reason, masked, and say, get in the car, we're taking you. And originally, once again, we'll go back to the numbers, we go back to all that stuff. He said, there's going to be 20 million violent criminals we're going to deport. Then when they found out there weren't 20 million violent, undocumented criminals, they go, we're just going to deport anybody who's undocumented. Then they started going after green card holders.
Yep.
And now we know they've deported citizens, the babies and the sort, and they're at the Supreme Court trying to get rid of birthright citizenship. So this is not a drill. This is happening, and people need to wake up to the fact that the ICE agency has been armed with and mandated and run by Kristi Noem, who's another just horrible human being. And, ultimately the cruelty is the point. Ultimately, fear is the point. Ultimately, making it so that I have a lot of comedian friends who are naturalized citizens. I'm a naturalized citizen. I have a lot of comedian friends who say, I don't know if I want to leave the country because I don't know what's going to happen if they'll let me back in. Mm-hmm. So it's their intimidation is working, which is not the country that we are supposed to be living in.
No, I think the young lady from Tufts, I think her name was Ramesa Ozturk, and yes, she was released, but that was fought. That release was fought by this administration tooth and nail. And I'm glad that you brought up, the point about people not leaving, because yes, you are an Iranian-American. You've talked about how these policies hit home in your shtick, right? How do you process a president demonizing immigrants while kissing up to Gulf state monarchs for his personal gain?
Well, once again, I listened to some of my friends who, once in a while when I'm arguing with them, and if they support him, and I say, well, the guy's racist, and they go, he's not racist. Well, what about the Central Park Five? What about the policies that he and his father did when they would not rent to black tenants? What about calling Mexicans rapists and drug dealers? What about all that stuff? And no, well, they have reasons for it, right? And then when you see this clear racist policy that he's just done, where he brings in the white South African farmers and says that they are being they're in a genocide and that they're being killed. When, by the way, in South Africa they have a big violence problem, so their murder rate is up, but that's for everybody, not just white people. It's white people, black people, everybody. So when he does that, meanwhile he is deporting people like the Afghan translators who helped. He's getting rid of their temporary protection status. They helped America in the war against the Taliban, and he's saying, "You guys go." He's saying people from Venezuela, the Venezuelans who supported him, that famous lady who was saying, Venezuelans for Trump, and then they have the video of her going like, "Well, he lied to us." It's like, no shit, he lied to you. So brown people seem to be going, and he's okay with expediting the citizenship for white South African farmers. So he's clearly racist, and he's clearly someone who can be bought. And that's the difference for him, for a wealthy Gulf Arab versus an Arab who came here because they're being persecuted and they're running away from whatever their situation is. So yeah, that's what he is. He's a for sale racist.
No, that's one way. I want to talk, for example, because you brought up Tufts, the young female student. I want to talk for a second about Harvard. Trump and his enablers are out there every day painting schools like Harvard specifically as ground zero for anti-American Marxists, and threatening, and has already begun to pull federal funding. I want to remind my listeners the federal funding he's pulling is research and development for Alzheimer's, for Parkinson, childhood cancer research, things that benefit society. Question I really want to ask you is, when did higher education become the new enemy of the state in MAGA world?
Well, Michael, there's a lot of factors. First of all, you go back to, I forget, it was some advisor of Ronald Reagan's who had said, you don't want an educated population, because if you have an educated population, they come out and if there's not enough work, they'll rebel against you. So it's better to keep them uneducated. And now we see with these attacks on these universities, once again, we have lost sight of what America is supposed to do and represent. We're supposed to have the best universities, the best research. That's what we lead in. And by doing what they're doing, this is going to discourage the greatest minds from other countries from wanting to come here. Because the guy knows if he comes here and he says something pro-Palestinian, or he says something, against Trump, or he says something, just expresses opinion in America where he's supposed to have freedom of speech, that he could be sent to a prison in El Salvador. So why would brilliant scientists, come to America when I go to Canada, when I go to Europe? This is going to be a boon for these other countries, and it's going to hurt us. We're attacking our top universities and our top draws to this country. The reason why Silicon Valley is what it is, the reason why you go to Silicon Valley, it's a bunch of immigrants that are creating these companies that are American companies.
I think all but one. Right, Google. It was the guy Sergey Brin. You have Elon Musk with Tesla. Right, South African. I mean, every one of these major tech companies are all foreign, except for I think one.
Yeah. So so what they're doing, again, and they say it's an attack on woke. It's an attack on DEI. It's an attack on anti-Semitism. It's all such crap, and it's such an excuse to just go towards more and more authoritarianism. The fact that Marco Rubio can say that, oh, I'm deporting these students because their opinions are detrimental to American foreign policy, that just is nonsensical. I guess they tried to do this once. I think it was Janet Reno, where there was a Mexican national who would come to America, but he was a criminal who had done something in Mexico, and Mexico had said, send him back. And the United States at that time was saying, we were going to send him back because it's detrimental to our relationship with Mexico. And so they sent the guy back. But in this case, criticizing Israel or criticizing any country, Iran, America, England,
regardless of which side that you fall on, regardless of which
freedom
side
of speech. Yeah, and you should be listen, the people that are sitting there going like, well, good, these people should be arrested. Wait till you say something that is, considered socialist or communist or anti-Trump. Wait till you criticize this crazy birthday parade he's trying to throw for himself, and he comes around and they say, oh, we see that you did a post making fun of dear leader. Well, come with us, right?
Yeah. I mean, you remember there's that famous poem, right? First they came for the socialists. I didn't speak up because I wasn't a socialist, and then ultimately at the end, then they came for me. There was no one left to speak up. That's the problem. And you're right. Look, regardless of what position that you take, in the Israel-Palestine conflict, it's irrelevant, regardless of whatever issue or whatever position you take regarding Russia and Ukraine. I know people that are turning around and saying, you know what, fuck Ukraine already. I don't think America should spend another dollar helping Ukraine defend itself. Well, that's certainly your opinion and you're entitled to it. Let's just say I disagree, with it. But you're certainly free to say it. Now, what you're not free to do is to, hit somebody with a 9-iron because you disagree with them. But what did this young lady at Tufts do? She wrote an op-ed in her school paper that she writes for, and then found herself being detained and then, sent to a jail, right? For literally writing an article. I mean, that's right out of MBS's playbook. It's right out of Vladimir Putin's playbook in Pravda. We saw what happened to Navalny. This is no joke. But I did want to ask you, because look, let's be fair. You're a comedian, right? And I watch, for example, Saturday Night Live. By the way, I saw Pete Davidson last night, said hello to him. I told him I'd like to see him back on SNL. You're a comedian. What this administration is doing is giving the greatest comedic fodder that anybody could ever imagine, because it's so absurd that it's comical. And I would ask you, as a comedian, how would you sort of tell the story in a jocular manner of the president of the United States sitting with the president of the UAE and discussing that grocery prices in the United States, we're talking about two leaders, that grocery prices in the United States are higher because of liberal eggs. And again, that's not satire. That's real.
Well, you and I both.
How would you make a joke to an audience on something like this because the level of absurdity is just so high.
Well, Michael, you and I both know there's nothing worse than liberal eggs. They're very woke. Some of them are LGBTQ. Some of them are transitioning. They come out. We don't know if it's a boy, it's a girl. It's been the issue. And that's really what's caused the problem are these liberal eggs. To your point, I mean, I've been watching Colbert, Jon Stewart, John Oliver do great jobs. Jimmy Kimmel, Seth Meyers do great jobs of just lampooning this guy, because you don't even have to necessarily write a joke. You just set it up and then you play the clip of him saying whatever he says, whether it's the liberal eggs or he's saying, it's not just him, by the way. How about what's her name? The Secretary of Education calling AI A1. Remember, she kept calling it A1. So things like that, Linda McMahon, things like that. For comedians, it is. There's a lot of stuff that we can make fun of, and it's every day. It just keeps coming. But again, I think part of it goes back to what Steve Bannon said, where he said, just flood the airwaves with as much as you can. Just throw out so much so that people can't keep up with it. So what's unfortunate is, as we are making fun of him, he is leading more and more towards authoritarianism. He's deporting people that shouldn't be deported. Here's a good one. He's putting a picture of the guy's finger saying MS-13 that's clearly been photoshopped and going, this is real. You don't think this is real? You go, no, it's not, sir. It was photoshopped. No, it's real. And
Did you see Kristi Noem a couple of days ago? Was before congressional committee, and Congressmember Eric Swalwell asked her point blank, will you acknowledge that the letters MS and the numbers 1-3 are AI generated, that they are not what Kilmar Abrego Garcia actually has on his hand? And she refused. And she just kept talking in circles more and more and more to try to burn his 5 minutes so that she wouldn't have to answer that question. I found that to be beyond despicable.
Well, they say you elect a clown, you get a circus, right? So you got her doing that. You've got RFK Jr. I don't know if you saw this clip. When they said, would you give your child the measles vaccine? He's like, I don't. What people shouldn't be taking their medical advice from me. And I go, wait a minute, you're the head of the department. We're supposed to take our medical advice. It's like going to a restaurant and they call the manager, excuse me, sir, what item should we order? He goes, well, you shouldn't be taking advice from me on what to order. No, you manage the place. I want to know what you want.
What's your best dish?
What's your best dish? Well, I mean,
or how about RFK swimming in a swamp? Claiming that it's all bullshit with the bacteria. You can't see it. Look how clean the water. By the way, schmuck, bacteria is not something you could see with the naked eye. It's like, oh, there's a bacteria. Hey, this isn't a fucking salmon. Let me be very clear, trying to swim upstream. It's bacteria, and it's microscopic, you fucking dope.
He's got a cabinet that is ripe for roasting. And the irony of all this is that he doesn't go to the correspondence dinner. They didn't bring a comedian this year.
You ever tried launching a podcast with zero experience? Well, let me tell you, it's like being tossed into a cage match with a grizzly bear, blindfolded, wearing clown shoes. I mean, when I started Mea Culpa, I thought to myself, come on, how hard can this be? Well, script writing, logos, production schedules, ad deals, and don't even get me started on the tech setup. I mean, I felt like I was decoding the damn Matrix. If only I had Shopify when I launched this beast. Shopify is the platform behind millions of businesses across the globe, responsible for a whopping 10%, you hear me? 10% of all e-commerce in the United States. And my friends, that's not hype. That's a fact. from big names like Mattel and Gymshark to folks just getting their hustle off the ground. Shopify's got their back. I mean, you want a gorgeous online store? Shopify's got hundreds of sleek, ready-to-go templates that make you look like a design god. And AI tools? Yeah, they've got those too. Writing your product descriptions, jazzing up your images, maybe even making you sound smarter than you actually are. I mean, not naming names or anything, right? I mean, need a marketing squad? Shopify's built-in tools let you hit email, Instagram, TikTok, wherever your customers are scrolling or doom scrolling. And listen, Shopify handles it all. Inventory, returns, international shipping. I mean, they are the ride or die business partner that you never knew that you needed. So if you got a big idea or even a little one and you're ready to turn that dream into a reality, head over to shopify.com/Cohen. So if you want to see less carts being abandoned, it's time for you to head over to Shopify and sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Cohen. That's Shopify, SHOPIFY.com/Cohen. One more time, that's shopify.com/Cohen.
If they had brought a comedian and they said, it's all fair game, the whole cabinet, I mean, you would have had 2-3 hours worth of jokes because they are just a bunch of bumbling idiots who continue to bumble, and somehow they are in these positions of power. We have to we have to say Kash Patel, director of the FBI. I mean, what a joke is that? It's a joke.
Can I tell you something? The other day, there was this whole thing about James Comey with a bunch of seashells, 8647, and so on. And I think Comey was dead ass wrong for doing it, and his notion, he lies too, by the way. That's a big problem. Everybody, all of these individuals, they all fucking lie for a living. Oh, I didn't know what 86 really meant. And when I was ultimately told, I took it down. Really? Because a fucking 5-year-old knows what it means to 86 something, right? It was wrong, especially in light of the previous scenarios. But the craziest part is Kash Patel put out a post, and it was actually the most accurate and sensible post that anybody can put out. For the first time, I was really impressed with him. I was like, oh my God, maybe something happened. Maybe somebody hacked Kash Patel's, X or Truth Social. It was a perfect post about why you don't put up something like that. And the fact that the FBI is not the group that investigates things like this. It's Secret Service, but FBI will work along with Secret Service if that's what they ask. If they ask us for our help. It was a very tempered, and it was a well-written and a well-thought-out post. So Kash Patel, I know you listen to this, all right? Good job, my friend. And since, again, we're talking about stupidity, can we talk about Trump's tariff war going on globally? I mean, just the other day, while in the UAE, he actually told, literally, the president of the UAE and to everybody that was listening, that China is begging to make a deal, as all the countries are, right? Even though that he claims that there are more countries than actually are, but everybody's begging to make a deal. And while he's making that assertion, he's also threatening new tariffs on everything from semiconductors to sneakers if they don't do what he says. So I really want to just ask you, is this foreign policy or just a late night infomercial with global consequences?
I'm going to go with the latter, Michael.
How did I know you were going to do that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things here. First of all, the fact that every time they're about to make some sort of deal or pause on the tariffs, he goes to Truth Social and he goes, now's a good time to buy stocks. I mean, that just in a sane world, the SEC would be so far up his ass right now, just going, no, you can't keep saying, oh, I'm about to announce a deal. Now's the good time to buy stock. I mean, it's just bold cheating and stealing. And the tariff thing, I'm sure you saw when Rachel Maddow broke down the whole thing of Peter Navarro and how he created an economist named Ron Vera, and how that economist doesn't exist, but that's the economist that we were listening to that led us into the tariffs. I mean, I'm not an economics expert, so I started listening to and watching, clips from CNBC and other news, financial news outlets, and I started listening and reading, things coming out of Wall Street Journal and other economists. And to the T, all of them were going, they're scratching their heads going, we don't get this tariff thing at all. And for the fact that, you saw his Secretary of Commerce saying, oh, we want to bring manufacturing back to America so we can screw in the iPhones. And then the interviewer goes, well, don't robots do that now? And he goes, yeah, so we'll need to supervise that. And I go, oh, so there's going to be 1,000 robots screwing in iPhones, and there's going to be 2 guys watching it. So really, the jobs are not being taken by immigrants. They're being taken by technology. That's what it is. And so really what we need to do, if we really want to be smart, is we need to be transitioning into the jobs of the future. We need to be ahead of everything. We need to have these.
Maz, please don't use the word transitioning, because then we're going to get attacked on, on the entire transphobia coming out of this administration.
It's just unbelievable how many, to your point, like you're right, how many things they go after and how nonsensical it all is. And these tariffs are one of the bigger ones. You're gonna step up to China. China doesn't need you. China's laughing in your face. And the fact that he comes out and he goes, well, we made a deal and we brought the tariffs down. You didn't have to start the problem in the first place. And you could have, by the way, dealt with things surgically. I'm not saying China is a great actor here. I know that China definitely, is our big economic rival on the world stage, and we should do things to try and even that playing field. But you don't do it by announcing a worldwide tariff that tanks the economies of the world and almost leads us into a recession. So, I don't know.
It's almost like, isn't it? It's almost like Munchausen by proxy. It's where, you start a fire, right? So that way you could put it out and become the hero. I mean, that's exactly, or you make your kids sick so that you could cure them, and that way you become the hero. I mean, that's the way that I see it. But I want to ask you this as well, right? Because you've spent your career showing people the absurdity of stereotypes, right? But Trump, he builds his brand off of them. Muslims, Latinos, Hispanics, Chinese, transgenders. How dangerous is it when the leader of the free world traffics in racist stand-up dating back to the 1980s?
Oh, it's very dangerous. And he's been doing it for a long time, from when he first said that Barack Obama wasn't born, the birther, the birther scandal, the birther conspiracy, to in the debates, he brought out in the debates, they're eating cats and dogs. They're eating cats and dogs. So when you see that on a fringe Twitter page, you go, oh, this guy's crazy. But when it somehow makes its way out of the mouth of the president of the United States, that's very dangerous. Because, Michael, the danger of it is, first of all, you laugh at first. You go, I can't believe he just said that. But there are people who take him for his word, who are also, like you said, stereotyping, and they're going, oh, well, they are eating cats and dogs. And so the next time they come across, a Haitian in Springfield, Illinois, or wherever it was, they confront that person, and it leads to violence. It leads to danger. I mean, I talked about this in my Netflix special. In his first campaign, when he was doing the anti-Muslim rhetoric and saying there's going to be a Muslim ban and all that stuff, there was a guy, I believe it was in Kansas. He walks into a bar where there's 2 Indians who have come from India to work tech jobs and make a better life for themselves. And at some point, for whatever reason, he goes to his car, comes back with a gun, shoots them, gets in his car, drives to another bar and starts talking to the bartender and says, I just shot a couple of Iranians. That's what he said. And when you look at it, you go, why did this guy in Kansas, first of all, think he was shooting Iranians? Why would he want to shoot Iranians? And then he got Indians, and there was no confrontation. It was just him doing this because of the rhetoric. When you hear that Muslims are coming after us, Iranians are coming after us, Palestinians, when you hear all of that stuff, there are people who are not sane, and they're going to do things like this. So absolutely, Michael, it's funny at first, but dangerous, very dangerous for the leader of the free world to be participating in these types of stereotypes. Yeah,
I agree. So look, Maz, like I said, the hour goes by really quickly. I have one final question for you. And in all seriousness, because you and I, we could joke about this insanity all day long. I mean, you don't have to be a great comic in order to come up with great punchlines anymore. Just use literally word for word what some of these idiots are saying. How do we fight this? The lies, the authoritarianism, the grift. Can comedy still cut through the madness, or are we too far gone for punchlines at this point in time?
Michael, it's funny because when he won in the election, I was just exhausted. And I know a lot of people went through this. I stopped watching a lot of news. I was just listening to music. Because I thought, oh my God, after all of this, the bully won. After all of this, he was on the line to be held accountable for January 6th, to be held accountable for the classified documents, to be held accountable for all of his grifting. And he won, and now he's pardoning everybody. So I really at first was kind of hands in the air and going, there's nothing we can, that's it. Like I'm done. And really in the back of my mind at times thinking, do you move to Europe? Do you get out of here? What do you do? And so, but as we see this assault on democracy, as we see this authoritarianism, as we see ICE agents just taking people off the streets, as we see him grift more and more and more, I do feel that we need to all come together if we really want this country to remain what it is. Because I come from Iran that, I left as a kid, but the country that it was before the Islamic Revolution was a very different country than it is today. And it's been in a dark place for 45 years plus, where freedoms for women and religious minorities and the LGBTQ community are gone, where you can't do certain things, can't say certain things, sure as hell can't criticize any leaders. You can't criticize. I did a joke in my Axis of Evil comedy special. I said, the beauty of America is we can make fun of our president. I go, I can't make fun of the president of Iran in Iran. If I did that, you'd say, hey, when's your next show? I'd be like, there are no more shows. The Ministry of No Show showed up, and my next show will be in prison, basically taking whatever, getting my ass kicked. So yes, I think that comedy, I think that what you're doing, I think that continuing to speak, I think that people like Jasmine Crockett and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders and all the other, Chris Murphy, all the people that
Jared
are
Moskowitz,
Eric Swalwell,
Moskowitz, Raskin. I mean, there's a lot on the Democratic side. There's very few on the Republican side speaking up, though more and more right now are actually doing that because of the absurdity.
Yeah. So we need to fight it. We can't give up this country, because otherwise, you and I will be doing this podcast 10 years from now in Argentina in Spanish, because we had to flee because America became a dictatorship.
Well, muchas gracias por ir on my podcast. Right? Maz Jobrani, thank you, my brother. So good to see you. It's been too long. Let me know when you're in town. Definitely want to get together and see you. And anything that I can do to help you, please call me at any time. And thanks for being part of the fight.
Good seeing you too, my friend. I was really happy you reached out and had me back on. I'm happy to be on with you. It's therapeutic for me. And I'll be in New York in November doing town hall. So hopefully, if you're in town, we'll get you down to the show this time, and we'll have a good laugh.
I look forward to it. Maz, thank you, brother.
Take care. Bye.